For those who got divorced after 10 plus years of marriage, what made you realize that it's finally time to get a divorce? I was married at age 24 and was married for 18 years before I called it quits. We had 4 kids, and I worked a full-time job nights and did the activities my kids were in on my own. Oh, and I was also a full-time nursing school student. My ex-husband spent more and more time out of the house. He said it was necessary to work on the rental properties we owned. Turned out, he had a side piece. The last straw was when our 2-year-old drowned in our pool while he was supposed to be watching her. I've been divorced for 20 years now, and the kids are all grown and doing their own thing. Leaving with the kids was the best thing I could do. 23 years. I had lied to her several times over the years, and she always forgave me. The last time I lied to her was about accruing a severe amount of debt due to a gambling addiction. I think she might have forgiven the lie, but she couldn't forgive the addiction and the chance I'd start gambling again. I started attending Gamblers Anonymous after I told her, but it was too little too late for her. On the plus side, I haven't gambled in almost 3 years. During COVID, I stayed home, trying to facilitate e-learning for our kids. I only left the house twice a month to grocery shop. I was trying to minimize exposure since my ex-husband's job still required him to travel. In reality, he was just checking into the nicest hotels in our large city and paying for sex and online shopping for expensive art, which he used to decorate his office. As it turns out, leisurely lunch hour sex is also frowned upon by employers. He was fired from his job and earned himself a divorce. While wallowing in self-pity, one of his sexcapades turned out to be an undercover police officer in a sting operation, which is a felony in my state. He now currently uses his MBA to deliver sandwiches. Things were great when I was healthy. Then came the sudden stage 4 cancer diagnosis, and it was like he wrote me off completely during treatment. I had no idea he didn't believe I'd make it. I was receiving world-class care, fighting with everything I had to heal, all while caring for 2 children, one of them a fragile preemie. While I was focused on surviving, he was having an affair with a young, healthy coworker who was also married. The betrayal stretched across the years it took me to recover. I thought the emotional distance was his way of grieving, of coping. I thought the long hours and late nights were because I could no longer work, and he was carrying the financial weight. But something in me knew. One day I felt it, that unshakable sense that something was wrong. I kept asking him, but he wouldn't tell me. So I looked at his phone and found all the heartbreak I needed to see. I know it's hard on my young kids now, but I think it's better to come from a broken home than to grow up in one. Maybe someday, if they are in a similar abusive situation, which I hope not, they will find the strength to leave like I did. My wife of 19 years had an affair. I would have never left her for any other reason. We married young, but we had many great years. She felt she had missed out on things by being married and having kids so young. She still holds a place in my heart, but I know I would have resented her if I did not leave. We were riding in the car, and I asked him to slow down because it was icy and I felt unsafe, only for him to speed up, go into a screaming rage about how I always try to control him, and threaten to crash the vehicle. This type of scenario would happen time and time again in different forms. After 10 years, I finally had enough of the verbal abuse, and it almost began to not faze me anymore. He said, "Are you really going to divorce me for how I drive?" I said, "Yup. I have a hard time standing up for myself, but I didn't back down. It was the best decision I've ever made, and now I have much more self-confidence." I realized when I was balls deep in one of her friends. We were having problems. Intimacy and connection were just gone. I was still trying to make things work. She didn't want to do couples counseling and didn't really want to try to work on things. Her whole life had become ruled by the hunt for an easy button, and our marriage was no exception. So she went to the solution a lot of people experiment with and wanted to do the open marriage thing. She brought one of her friends into the bedroom, and for about 10 minutes, it was the hot scenario everyone thinks a threesome would be. Then I abruptly realized I had more connection with her friend, who I barely knew, than I did with the woman I'd been married to for years, so I got up, took a shower, and called a lawyer. Zero regrets. We stopped sleeping together in the same bed. We both knew it was over, but kept things on cruise control for a couple years because of our child. We were like 2 ships passing in the night, as they say. Then one day, we sat and talked and agreed we should get a divorce. It was 100% amicable. Now, she and my son live about 2 miles from me. I see him every single day, and she and I get along better than we ever did as a married couple. We laugh, eat dinner together as a family, play games in the backyard, etc. Co-parenting for us is much more successful than staying married. There is no bad blood or arguments anymore. My ex-husband's substance abuse issues reached the point where he was frighteningly erratic. One day he got physically aggressive with me and our 10-year-old son, locked himself in our apartment bedroom, and fired his handgun. That was my breaking point. That was 12 years ago. It took several years, but we gradually built a tentative friendship forged on our mutual love for our kids. Despite everything, we still rooted for one another. Unfortunately, he never stopped struggling with addiction. He passed away from a fentanyl overdose last year at age 43. My mom filed for divorce after 27 years with my dad. Us kids were out of the house, and I think she had a midlife crisis, thinking that if she decided to do nothing, then that's how she'd die. In that house, doing nothing but things that make the days go by faster. I believe an old high school flame helped her make the decision as well. At first, I was hurt, but as I got older, I now completely understand why. My dad prefers routine over excitement and had a habit of saving too much when we didn't need to. At first, it was a financial requirement, then it became an obsession. My mom wanted to travel and experience new things in her later years. She deserves that, and my dad deserves to live how he wants to too. Today, I see two happier people, and that makes me happy. We were married 17 years. Then, he decided to have a fling with his 19-year-old cousin. I decided to let them be together as they were so happy. Spoiler alert, his entire family was horrified. She had to move back home and they didn't get there happily ever after. I did though. I have a garden, a rescue dog, and the respect of my adult kids. My bipolar husband of 15 years stopped taking his meds, added a stimulant, went manic, and decided he needed to cash in his retirement and move to bare land to build a commune. He did exactly that 7 months ago. We have 2 kids under 14. X is now living alone on his property in a shanty town he built out of tents, tarps, and plywood. He quit his high-paying job as a software engineer 5 months ago to avoid paying child support. Due to his mental health issues and substance abuse, the judge ordered that he is not allowed overnight visits with our kids. He is allowed daytime visits every weekend, but so far, he has not used his visitation. He doesn't even text our kids to check in, so they've been with me 100% of the time since last fall. The crazy thing is that he was a very good and involved father before all this happened. I worked at a law firm that only practiced family law, divorces, child custody, wills and estates, etc. At one time, we had like 8 clients getting divorced after 20 plus years of marriage. They were all high-ranking military men whose wives came out of the closet after all their kids had grown up and moved out of the house, and the guys were getting ready to retire. I thought it was so weird, but I guess the women thought that their duties to their husbands and families were coming to an end, and they wanted to live for themselves. I get why they couldn't come out 30 years ago. It was a different time, but I was curious why they were all attracted to military guys. I assume maybe because it meant their husbands would be away for years at a time during their service. I married my high school sweetheart. We were together for 15 years total. I divorced her after she became an alcoholic, got into LSD, and had an affair with a 60-year-old guy across the street. I have no regrets. I got 2 wonderful kids out of that marriage, and the first 13 years together were actually pretty good. We don't talk these days, but we're cordial when we cross paths at family events. Our marriage was awful. 10 plus years of severe emotional abuse, gaslighting, and religious trauma. We had stopped having sex 4 years in. I was depressed. He hated how ungodly I had become, but we didn't believe in divorce. I was tied to him forever. One day, we went to a diner and I asked him to order me a sandwich with a side of onion rings if the waitress came while I went to the bathroom. When I came back to the table, he told me he had ordered our food. I tried to break the usual tension by making a joke. I joked about how onion rings must be healthy since they were a vegetable. He told me I was stupid for believing such nonsense and how dumb I was for ordering onion rings. He ranted for 5 minutes about how any idiot who thinks onion rings are healthy should know that the frying process takes out all the nutrients, and they're the most unhealthy thing anyone could eat. I sat in silence, afraid to eat and afraid to annoy him any further. Then the waitress brought out our order, my sandwich with a side of onion rings and his chicken wrap, with a side of onion rings. Something inside me snapped. All I could do was stare at his plate. It was somehow a literal, physical representation of our entire relationship staring at me in the face. He ate every last damn onion ring. It took me a year to set myself up to leave safely, but I got out and never looked back. He remarried 3 months after our divorce was finalized. It took me a solid year before I could even go on one single date again. If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. We had differing opinions on parenting. Our kids were diagnosed with autism and ADHD, and I worked really hard to support them. We reached an impasse when he consistently chose work over attending appointments and got angry if the kids or I were ever sick. I would yell and he would give me the silent treatment. He ignored me for a week when I got a small tattoo against his wishes. I struggled with my Christian faith and decided to leave the church. He told me I was going to hell. We had been together almost 12 years when I turned 40 and realized I didn't want to live separate lives where he tolerated me. He told me I had no filter and that I was embarrassing. I told him he was emotionally challenged. We limped on in the marriage, and eventually I suggested an ultimatum: marriage counseling, or I would move out. He said, "If I'm so bad, then go." So I did. It's been nearly 9 years, and I'm so proud of the growth I've had since I left. I'm poor as hell now, but I get to parent the way I want. I'm free to be embarrassing, and I don't have to live with someone always rolling their eyes at me. He repartnered 3 years after we separated. He's 50 and she's 29. I'm happily single. Together for 30 years, now divorced for 4. It was years of building resentment and not taking care of the relationship above all other of life's problems and distractions. The end came when he pursued another woman who laughed at his jokes and whom he thought was interested. He didn't want to talk about it or go to counseling, so I really had no choice but to leave. My life is so much easier now. We were together for 20 years, married for 15. We started as high school sweethearts, but we eventually realized that we weren't the same people we were when we fell in love. We also realized that that wasn't going to change. We decided that the best way for everyone to be happy for the rest of our lives was to end it on peaceful terms before we were both 70 and resentful of each other for trapping each other in an unhappy marriage for 40+ years. We were married for 21 years, together for 22. She had a midlife crisis mixed with an empty nest and a 22-year-old guy who was gassing her up. I thought it was just emotional cheating, but later learned it was physical too. I tried to wait it out and get her to come back to reality, but after 3 months of being gaslit and ignored, I needed to prioritize my mental health and left. I never imagined I would have gotten divorced, but it was one of the best things to ever happen to me. Sure was a long, painful process, but it was worth it. I didn't realize how unhappy I was until I looked back. My dad filed for divorce after 25 years of marriage. My mom was shell-shocked. My dad was absolutely miserable, but the signs of a failed marriage were always present. My dad is very emotional and is quick to anger. He never really handled failure very effectively and would get mad instead of being constructive. My mom is very family-oriented and was adamant that we never move farther than 40 miles from Chicago. When I was going away to college, she cried to my dad to force me to go to a school closer to home. In a way, I think my dad resented my mom for never letting him travel or get away from Chicago. It also doesn't help that I'm fairly certain my mom became depressed once her mom died. All she would do was do her bare minimum at her job, a school bus driver, come home and sleep, finish her route for the day, cook a hamburger helper meal for the family, and then play Angry Birds on her iPad. It's really weird seeing your parents divorce in your 20s. You're adult enough to speak candidly, and neither of them likes what you have to say about them during or after the fact. The silver lining out of it is that my sisters and I know how not to behave in a relationship. My ex-wife left the marriage twice. We reconciled in the middle. After we got back together, she promised she would never leave again and said she regretted her decision to separate. Before we got back together, I insisted on us taking a few months to date and to get counseling. I needed to trust what she was saying. Things had improved, so I took a leap of faith and we bought a new place together. 2 years later, she said she was unhappy again. Then she came out as lesbian. That was that for the marriage. She left for good, and about 18 months later, we were divorced. Her coming out explained so much in hindsight: the dead bedroom, the lack of affection, the 3-second hugs. But the fact that she wanted to reconcile after leaving the first time made me feel used. She wanted to save place as she figured herself out. When she left, she took pleasure in my pain and caused a lot of unnecessary chaos in the lives of others. I didn't know she was capable of that. After she left the first time, I blamed myself for the failure of my marriage. After she left the second time, I knew it was time to get off the roller coaster ride, to heal up, learn my lessons, and move forward. I've come to realize that the divorce was the best thing that could have happened to our marriage. I wish her well. After 16 years and many hurdles, I asked him to list 3 things about me that he liked. When I listened to who he thought I was, I didn't even like the person he described. I was crying when I asked him. I told him it could be anything: eyes, hair, whatever. He either couldn't or wouldn't. Sometime later, we had sex and tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't stop them. He never even asked why I had tears running down my face. Not at the moment and not after. I was done. There was no turning back once I allowed myself the thought of actually ending it. The thing is, he came back to talk 2 months after he moved out. I went to the other room to get him an iced tea, and when I came back, he had dropped his pants and was buck naked on my grandma's Victorian velvet chair. He says he wants a BJ. I honestly think he thought that would fix everything because in his mind, it always did. I told him that wasn't going to happen, and then he said, "You asked me to name 3 things. I have 10 things, maybe more I can think of right now." I felt sorry for him. It was pathetic. He fought me for 3 years getting the divorce. She lied about wanting kids. She strung me along for 10 years. She told me we were trying when she was actually taking birth control. She even had me get my fertility checked. Her plan was to pretend like she couldn't get pregnant, I guess. I'm happily remarried now and a father of 3. I put up with so much during our marriage, but did it all because he was my husband. But the day he looked at me and said he wanted kids, that was the day he found the one thing I couldn't compromise myself on. 20 years and 1 sentence too much. I left and haven't regretted it. We're amicable and still friends, but motherhood has never been in the cards. I walked in on her and another dude. I knew things weren't great, but still, I didn't deserve that. I hated her for a while. We had a daughter together, and hate is exhausting. Hate turned to indifference. Time heals, and we have been friendly for years. We didn't fight over anything, and the divorce went smoothly. I spent about $600. There are pros and cons between ripping the Band-Aid and slowly peeling it off. Ripping it off was a lot of pain at one time, but it shortened the misery. That was one of the worst nights of my life. Don't cheat. It messes people up. We were together for 20 years, but only married for 13 of them. Our interests just diverged over the years. I got more into music and art, wanted to go to festivals and such, and she wanted to screw her boss. I'm very grateful our attempts to have kids failed. It's much, much easier to make a clean break that way. I wasn't a fabulous partner at the beginning. I leaned on her to do most of the administrative stuff. To be fair, I was brand new to the US, so healthcare, insurance, and tax stuff were all very confusing. Still is, to be honest. I was also venting my frustrations in the wrong places, but I changed. I worked on my faults. I stepped up. I did 70% of childcare, school runs, bedroom routines, weekend mornings, etc. I took up tennis so we had something to do as a couple, but she wouldn't play with me. When she saw my play, she only criticized me and never supported or praised my progress. 10 years, 2 children, and a completely dead bedroom later, she decided to leave. That was last summer, and I'm heartbroken. Every time I look at her, I am sad. Then she speaks, and I remember how controlling, scornful, and mean she is. Not a single physical touch in years. No hugs, no kisses, no pats on the arm. I would screenshot anything nice she texted because it was that rare. Now we are amicably split. I'm lonely but happier day by day. It just kills me to see how affected my kids are. She told me that we settled and that she never loved me. I didn't settle. I accepted the things that wouldn't change and adored everything else. We live 2 blocks apart and speak every day. We are friends, but honestly, if we didn't have kids, I'd go back to the UK. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Reddit stories. See you in the next video.